Hi everyone, I hope you're good guys, and welcome for the part 2 of this video. If you haven't checked the part 1, I will put the link in the description and the link will appear in the corner. So we are working on the track which is sounding like kind of PoleGroup arts label kind of sound. Just let's have a listen before to dig into the arrangement, mixing and mastering. Alright, so that's what the track I was working on. And first I'm gonna start to talk about the arrangement, then I'm gonna start to talk about how I use Polymeter for this track, and then I'm gonna talk about all the automation that I've done, and then we will talk about the mixing and then the mastering. So the structure, it's basically you have the intro until this point here, and then you have a short break, and then you have the first, let's say, chorus here, then you have another short break, and you have like what I've called the verse. So the thing is, here you have the main lead along all the track, and I like to always kind of put like a verse here in the middle to just get rid a little bit of the main lead, to don't get too tired of it. And it's kind of the moment where as well you relax and you breathe a little bit before to start hard again. And then after I reintroduce the lead, and you have what I've called the chorus 2 around here. After the small break, you have drop 2 and pad here is chorus 2, and then the outro. So the thing you can see, it's even if it's still the same lead, the thing is I try always to have all parts different and new. Like as you can see here, for example, the perk 1 is not playing but was playing on the first part where I was during the intro. And for example, during the first chorus here, the perk 2 was not playing, but it's now playing during the chorus 2. Same goes with the pad. As you can see, like the pad was playing from the beginning, and then you have a whole part where the pad is not playing. And for example, here the lead is playing again, but only by itself. There is no the pad, rather than the first part was playing together. So always trying different combinations. Same goes with the drum. Always trying to put element together, combination of different elements together that never has been done before, and trying like this to make each 8 bar of your track, like you see that this is 8 bar division, always kind of make it different combination of element to make things always interesting. And even if, for example, here I have 16 bar where it's always the same things, you will always have like modulation of the filter for the lead or modulation of the decay for the hats. You will always have like different modulation. And a great way I've done that to never have the same 8 bar loop is to add Polymeter in this track. So basically it's like, let me jump back in the session. So that's all my original MIDI track. So you can see like the base of my track is like 2, so it's like 4 bar. The hats are the same, it's 4 bar. So everything is a multiple of 4, 8 here. But then when you go to the perk random, you can see it's not anymore a multiple of 4 or 8. You know, this one is 10 lengths, 10 bar length. This one is 7. This one is 12 or 6. And then after this one is 8 again. So the thing is, by doing that, like each 8 bar will be the same because they will never start back the same. As you can see here, if you check just these two perk, random 1 and random 2, and you can see like the pattern. Here you have 1 note here, 1 note here, 1 note here on the first 8 bar. On the second 8 bar, you have just 1 note here and 1 note here. On the third 8 bar, you have 1 note here, 1 note here, 1 note here, which is, even if it's 3 notes, it's a different pattern than the first one. And here as well, you can see the pattern of this 8 bar. It's completely different than all of the other before. And like this, you always keep having different kind of pattern, and the perk are never like hitting at the same moment. And so then this applies as well to the lead, which is like basically every 3 bar like this, I mean every 6. So it's always changing, and that's what's making each 8 bar of this track. That's why I've separated like this. It's like each of these 8 bar is different. So if you want to know more about Polymeter, just go to check on internet. There is plenty of tutorial about that, who people will explain way much better than me. And you have as well Polyrhythm, which is really interesting as well. Go to check. It's really nice to add a bit more variation to your production. Alright, and the other thing I've done to add a lot of variation is obviously automation. That's the best way. So you remember, as I say, on the hats, you add the decay here, which is always changing. I have MIDI pattern changing, open hi-hat. You see, I always introduce with just a simple open hats pattern, and then after I add a different hats pattern and close modulation. That's a lot of small modulation, and as I told you before, I put a bit everywhere. So here I don't have, because it's the right, but if you check here, I have an auto pan, and that's I use a lot of pan modulation because it's really nice in this kind of track to make you sound going around from the left to the right. And this one is, I don't know if you can hear how it's moving. You see, it's going slowly to the center and then moving back. So I'm just gonna use the other one. So Ableton doesn't have imager, but you can see. So that's my hats, and you can see how your hat is moving. So inside the right side, but still adding a bit of movement. So it's very subtle, but, and I've done this to almost, let me check here. You can see here as well, going to the left, to the right, and I've done that for maybe perk 2 as well. Yeah, you see, up it's moving. And the thing is, they all have they will all have like different rate or different amount, so they're always like crossing to each other, and it's still the same. It will never be the same, you know, pattern. It will always change and have something different. I probably have done it for the lead as well. So for, you know, I have two possibilities in this track. Here, either it's like going a very small modulation, like let's say from here until here, or it's either going like completely to the left, to the right. I don't know, I don't remember which element are doing, like there is some element, but I think it was the perk 2 who was like, yeah, it's really going more like from one side to another. And so that was a great way to add variation and make things a bit more interesting, because if you listen carefully to the track, you can listen this little variation. And the other thing I've done as well, it's, let me check, was on the hats. I use, I think it was on the close hi-hat. I used the photo filter here with the LFO amount, and this way, so you see even the, I don't know if the close hi-hat if it's moving. I think the close hi-hat stayed there. Yeah, but you can see the open hats is moving. Anyway, close hi-hat, you have this filter, so it's basically with the LFO doing like this, but I'm doing it a little bit. I'm exaggerating, but you get the idea. So that obviously, plus the decay, you know, it's really helping, always making things interesting. And yeah, I think it's the Perk one as well who got this auto filter modulation. So you can see you can hear the filter going up and down. Maybe I can drop a spectrum. But you can hear it anyway. You can see it moving. It's a very subtle modulation, but alright, nice. So this plus as well the velocity stuff I've put as well on the hats. Always keeping things changing all the time and not being always the same. Because especially when you don't have that much element like this track, it's always nice to play with this element and making them evolve and change and never the same during the whole track. So yeah, if you go to the lead, you can see as well that I have filter, automation, decay. So same during, I do that because like this is, I automate usually manually and it's always changing during the track and it's never the same. This way I have some auto pan here, automation is just for the break I wanted to add. And yeah, here I think I have just a bit of cutoff frequency as well. Just sometimes it's like this, the pad will be very clear, like with the filter open. And this one, let me show you. Alright, filter down, filter up, so it's exactly the same but with the filter a little bit more open. So like this is never the same, always changing. So yeah, you will see even the noise always, all other track has pan modulation or and filter modulation. Yeah, always a nice way to add modulation. Just put this plugin and making things more interesting. Just be subtle, because if it's too obvious as well, it will be sound probably a bit weird. Alright, and then yeah, the modulation as well, I send usually during the break, I send everything. I have a return here and I send some of the tracks, usually the lead and the hats, I send them in this return like this. It's helping transition as I don't have like too much SFX. Alright, let's jump into the mixing part. So one thing I've done here that I'm usually not doing much, it's panning, and it's not very huge white panning, but as you can see I've put thing a little bit on the left, and I've done this because with the, like I show you with the auto pan, it's just to put things, and because I made them moving like from left to right, or it's important to don't put them all in the center, because otherwise they are all moving like more or less the same way, rather than if I put this one a little bit on the left, one a little bit on the right. First it makes space to each other element, but then after with the auto pan modulation it's even more interesting. And you have the drums as well, but it's inside. You can see the close hi-hat is there, the open hi-hat is there, but moving around here. So obviously it's not like a straight left, straight right. I don't really like to do that, but it's helping keeping things at its place and being at its own space. So the mixing, so to speak, you see, like I usually don't have that much in mixing. It's mainly EQ and saturation, you know, like I'm very careful about the sample I'm picking it and making sure they are already fitting well together as far as I add. And if something doesn't fit the mix, I don't add it. I don't leave it for the mix, because usually it won't be able to solve it at the mix. So I'm always very careful, and just most of the time you will see just EQ that I will probably EQ on the way, a bit of sidechain to let's go through the mix, and distortion, nothing crazy. Usually if you make sure that elements are fitting well together, and you are careful when you are designing your sound and stuff like that, you shouldn't have that much problem. Usually the main thing you have is like maybe one song is not bright enough, so in this case you add some saturation. Maybe one is too dry, so we add a bit more reverb. And maybe maybe it's too quieter or missing power, so I will add, for example, if one song is missing a bit of punch or transient, I will add a drum bass with the transient. It's mainly just this kind of little stuff, because like I like to say, like 90% of your mix will be depending about which sound you use and which sound you put together. Yeah, like usually I don't have that much say after. The EQ, it's mainly I'm boosting the frequency I like. There is no really secret, it's like, and even it's a matter of days, can change from one person to another, but trying always to at least get rid of one of the part of the song I feel like useless or doesn't really add nothing to the sound, and then boosting the one I like. I always like, minimum at least cutting one part and boosting one. That's usually what I do. But sometimes, like here I boost 2 and I cut just 1. Mainly cutting the low frequency, making space for the low. And sidechain compression here and there, just like I said, to get this nice bumping effects, or even in the mixing case to more like let the kick cut through the mix. And like you can see, I don't really, I know people use delay and reverb as a return. I used to do that. I don't do it anymore. There is no right or wrong way. It's just like, I just rather prefer to put it straight away on my track, because most of the time you put delay and reverb more like in the sound design way, like more like to add color or certain rhythm to your sound, rather than just putting in the space. Before they used to use it as a return, because for recorded music, yes, it makes sense because you put element in the room. But electronic music is kind of a bit different, because you will use delay and reverb as part of your sound design process of your sound, So that's why I like to put them here, and I already more or less, like usually what I'm doing is always my drum. They never have a very long decay in the reverb, because I will have more like a room kind of reverb for my drums, I don't want them to have a long tail because it's very noisy and it's making your mix messy. But then for the same, we'll go with the perk. But then for the lead, I will have more like a medium reverb, like something a bit longer. And then for the pad, I will have a very long reverb. Like, the lead one will be like more in the middle between the room and the pad, which is very long one. And the lead one will be like middle one, because you see around 2, 3 is the same. If you put too long after, it will just like mess your mix. And if you make it too shorter, it doesn't sound good. It sounds too dry and it's not powerful, and then it's no breathing. You know what I mean? So you have to find the right balance. That's how I mix and how I see the things. But still everyone is able to make things different. You can still do everything. If you have like problem with your CPU, you can still put them as a return, and it will work as well just fine. And one of the reasons I don't do in the return is like, for example, after if it's a song of mine and I export it and I want to put in my live set, it makes things so complicated to have return to export things and to have like audio with some effect. I mean, it's like, it's a headache. So that's why I do like this. I just do use the return as a FX for the transition, and that's it. By the way, I didn't talk about mixdown, but the riser knob is like just like this DJ reverb delay FX is just to have the transition here and there, and I have the low cut just like for my break part. That's how it works. Alright, let's jump to the mastering. So let's just get rid of the imager. It's pretty simple mastering, it's nothing super fancy. I'm gonna deactivate everything. As you can see, it's like compression, EQ, saturation, and limiter. I would love Ableton to make like a kind of tape plugin, and the stereo imager will be nice. Maybe in the future, but for now I have to keep with this. And so the first thing is utility, making the bass. I will play under 120 in mono for the club PA speaker. Okay, let me just look that. Then compression is just very gentle compression, just to glue and tighten everything up. The attack is fast, but not too fast, and the release, it's quite slow. So just gentle compression. Then the EQ. So always handle this with care, don't be too brutal. Always like 2 or 3 dB of gain reduction. I already use it mainly for tonal balance. Here I'm boosting the low end around where the kick is, just to have a bit more low end sub, I don't know how to say, but then I've removed here around 200. I don't know, I just didn't like it how it sounds. It was a bit like boomy, or it's a bit like boomy or mudgy, too much bass. Then here I boost very wide, around 900 Hz, 101 kHz, usually it's just to add a bit more presence. It is making then I boost here around 4.5 kHz. Just to make the sound a little bit brighter and help the hot element to breathe. You're gonna see. Just, yeah, little things a little bit brighter, things like breathe a little bit more. Then you have this kind of R shape which is boosting everything, but like usually I don't put this low pass filter. But here, because of all the ride, the hats and the noisy element, I don't know, I just find it like adding a little bit of low pass here, just gentle, very gentle, was helping the sound. Then we have saturation, gentle saturation to add extra harmonic. Makes things a little bit brighter. It as well obviously helps improve the loudness without compromising too much the dynamic that we're gonna squash with these 2 limiter right here. Just to make things like, let's say, a house loud to be able to compete with the rest of the track, let's say. I use 3 limiter. It's just like I feel like it's the limiting is less brutal than if I was just putting like 4 dB there. I don't think it's a big difference, but I still keep doing it. Alright, and that's it for this track. I think I've talked about everything. If you have any questions, do not hesitate to put it in the comment. Thank you very much for watching, Sky. This template is available to buy in my website. If you want to support me, that's the best way. Thank you very much for watching, guys, and see you next time. Bye bye.